Hello, and welcome to the Discover Dayton podcast, the show that's all about the Gem City's past, present, and future. My name is Arch Grieve, and I'm your host. And today I'm excited to get to talk to Kathleen Hotmer, who runs the Dayton business Pink Moon Goods. I discovered her business personally while I was at an event at the Dayton Arcade, and her business is one that I respect and admire quite a bit for its mission and vision and values. And I really enjoyed talking to her in this episode, so I hope you'll take a minute and sit back and listen to my interview with Kathleen, which is coming up in just a moment. Well, hello and welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on to talk with me today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited.
I just found out that this episode will likely air on your birthday, so assuming that it does, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Well, so I invited you here today to talk about your business, Pink Moon Goods, but before we get to that, I wonder if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm a native Californian. I studied in Northern California. I went to college in Northern California, but I grew up in Southern California. I moved to Dayton about 15 years ago, part-time, and kind of went back and forth for a couple of years and then eventually settled here. I have previously been working as a costume designer and a costumer. I recently transitioned out of that job to pursue my business full time. I live with my husband, Luke, who owns a record store, and our cat, Edith. And I am an avid gardener. I spend most of my time, my free time, in the garden. And I just love mostly growing flowers. I do grow some vegetables, but I grew flowers for my wedding and became addicted to growing flowers. So
nice.
I do a lot of that. Yeah. And I kind of feel like one of the exciting things about my business is it's really become an extension of who I feel like I am and kind of how I conduct my household. I like kind of sharing that with the world in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of your business, Pink Moon Goods, my first question is, where did the name come from and what made you want to start the business?
Okay. So the name, I really wanted the name of my store to invoke a feeling of something magical and mysterious in a way. Mm-hmm. And my first encounter, I went through many, many names. I'm sure every person that starts a business has a list of all the possible names. And I can't say for sure if I heard the song and then, or if I just thought about the song and then listened to it. But my first inspiration was the song by Nick Drake called Pink Moon. And he, it's this very sultry guitar song where the lyrics just, he just says the pink moon's coming over and over, and it, kind of carries your mind into this imaginary, magical place. So I started investigating, what is the actual pink moon, and discovered that the pink full moon, it's in April. It's called the pink moon because although if you Google pink moon, it will bring up a load of pink moon images. The moon is not actually pink, but the color pink relates to one of the first spring blooms, which is the phlox. And the pink moon itself symbolically is a symbol of renewal.
Oh, okay.
So my store, I feel like, is really about me asking people to kind of renew, rebirth their ideas of how they consume and the effects of the consumption. So it kind of all just came together, and with the development of my logo as well, just kind of, developing, again, a sense of magic and awe and mystery, which I really want customers to feel when they come into my store and start looking around at the products. So it was a perfect culmination of, all the little bits and parts of that, what the idea of Pink Moon represents.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Why I started my business, when my husband and I were traveling for our honeymoon, we went to New England. We traveled for about 9 days through several different states and small towns. And we, of course, we're consumers. We like shopping. My husband mostly shops for records. And I typically will shop for, tea towels, paper goods, and ceramics. Those are sort of my three things that I always look out for.
Sure.
And it seemed like all these little towns or cities that we went into had a similar, a store that kind of had all of these things that I wanted, and different brands and the styles and the kind of ethos that I am really drawn to personally. And it got me thinking about, our city and its development, and that, there really is a need, in my opinion, for more retail downtown, especially. And, in one sense, I would say it was a little bit of a selfish desire because I wanted to manifest a store that had all of the things that I love in it.
Sure.
But, of course, because I know that these stores exist in other parts of the country and the world, really, that I knew it would be, a big hit and a welcome to the kind of Dayton retail scene. And I had just watched my husband, open his record store. It had been open for almost a year before we got married, and I was at his side for all of it. And it made the idea of opening a retail shop more accessible to me. And so it kind of gave me the guts to go after it.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, and before we get to some of your products, I'd like to talk about your mission a bit, which is finding beauty in everyday living. And it seems like a big part of that is, sustainability and ethical living. So I wonder if you could talk about your mission a little bit and maybe how those values play out, in your business.
Okay, yeah, that's a really great question. I definitely, in the very beginning of my business, I wanted to make sure that all of the products that I brought into my shop were manufactured ethically. And one of the big kind of driving force of ethics in our household is reducing our waste. And so really the issue of sustainability kind of became like a no-brainer for me because, it's been something that's driven our house and all of the decisions that we make. And I want to find a way to promote for everybody within their means to do the same thing, because I don't think it's any secret anymore that we're kind of in a turning point right now in terms of the environment and the planet and the waste that we're producing.
Right.
So I really feel like as consumers, it's important to think about the effects of the money that we're spending. And personally, when I buy a product, I really want to know, where does that product come from? Who made the product? Where do the supplies come from? Who was involved in the process? Is that person or those people being paid fair wages? What is the carbon footprint of this product? Is it coming from out of the United States? If it is, does it need to, or is there something better here closer to home for us? If it comes from somewhere else in the world, why? Is it because of that's where the materials are, or that's where a certain tradition of making might be? Is that where people are trying to support themselves by maintaining a traditional way of, for instance, basket weaving? And so all of these questions for me are the questions that I ask before I spend money. And I really, as a consumer, it was easy to kind of translate that into my business. I want to make sure that anything that I bring into my business, that manufacturing process is vetted so that it aligns with my ethics. The sustainability is sometimes a little bit of a tricky thing. So there's a lot of products that we kind of have become a lot more familiar with because of the movement of sustainable living. And not all of those products are actually manufactured ethically. There's a lot of kind of there's these sort of like big, I call them sort of like corporate sustainable or green product lines, where someone in the United States had an idea to develop a product line, but they took everything out of the US for manufacturing and securing materials and supplies. And so, it might be that like everything in their store is made in China. And, I appreciate that, people in China need to work, and, we're supporting a global economy on the one level, but, China is a place that historically has really bad or poor like manufacturing processes and treatment of employees. So, it's like you want to buy the product that is reducing your waste, but if it's being manufactured somewhere where you can't vet, for instance, what happens to the waste of the manufacturing, and is that creating some terrible impact somewhere, or are people not being able to support themselves because of the ways in which the market moves in terms of people being paid fair wages. So for the products that I carry that I would call my kind of sustainable products, I really go through like quite a process of vetting these products to make sure that not only is it a product that is helping you live more sustainably at home, it's also a product that was created with sustainability in mind. So for instance, there's no plastic involved with it, that it shows up at your doorstep with no plastic, if it's promoting reducing plastic.
Right. Oh, that's great. Well, and that's a great segue, I guess. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. So I wanted to just go a little more to like the idea of finding beauty in everyday life. So for me, beauty is really just very necessary in my life. This is something that really took hold for me after my first visit to Japan. I was so impressed with how much beauty you would find in even the most mundane things like pothole covers. And, I remember encountering the first pothole cover that was just so beautiful and ornate that I was like, what? This is a pothole cover. So when I returned home from that visit, I was really inspired to find ways to bring beauty into my day every day. What I have found is that when products for our home are made with intentionality and purpose, they often are beautiful. For instance, Swedish dishcloths are kind of one of the standard go-to replacements for paper towels. And so they're made from plant fibers. They will decompose at their end of their life. They last, you can reuse them for a certain period of time, so you get a lot of use out of them. But also, most of them are printed with really lovely designs or inspirational quotes. So it's like washing your counter or cleaning up a mess can be a moment of beauty, which is really what excites me about a lot of the products that I carry. Is it's not just about ethical manufacturing and sustainable practices, but also finding ways to bring beauty into your life, because frankly, it just feels good. It just feels really nice to like have something beautiful around.
No, I love that. And it's a great segue, I guess, into, talking about your products. And I, first came across you at one of the market days at the Dayton Arcade, and saw some of the stuff you had, which was really cool. And I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit about some of the types of things you sell and products that you offer.
Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, my first sort of driver for developing my product line was, what do I want in my home? What are the things that I want in my home? And, the first one really was, what products replace anything in our homes that is disposable? And so, those are the products that I think really people do get excited about, and then also really overwhelmed by the idea of replacing, disposable things at home. So it's one of the things I enjoy talking to my customers the most about. So some of these things might be, for instance, I have a dry mop that replaces those dry mops that where you like swap out the little towel that you throw away, after you mop your floor. So this one's made from recycled wool. You can wash the head of it, you can replace it eventually, but it's literally just made out of wool. So it will decompose eventually, creating no waste. Swedish dishcloths, which again are a replacement for paper towels. And they're made from plant fiber completely. It's something that's been used in Europe for years, since, probably at least the 50s. And then has recently come to the US. One of the first people to bring a line of Swedish dishcloths to the US, it's still a pretty popular brand, was started by a man who grew up in Finland and used these as a kid. And when he lived in the United States, thought, well, we need these over here in the US. So, I sell a cutlery wrap that I make myself, and it was actually the first product that I ever started selling. And this is something that I started using years ago because I personally hate plasticware. I find most of it to be just unreliable. Like it breaks. You can't really cut things with the knives. And, it's just, it doesn't feel good in your mouth. And so I started carrying this cutlery wrap, which I carry a complete set of silverware, a cloth napkin, a straw, and a set of chopsticks in mine. And I carry mine everywhere I go. And especially during COVID, it was very exciting because so many restaurants were using plasticware. So it was great to have that on hand to be like, oh no, I don't need that. I'm going to use my own. Yeah. And and then some of the other things like beeswax wraps replace plastic wrap. I sell a chainmail scrubby, which can, replace any scrubby for basically any dishes that don't have a coating, but primarily for cast iron skillets. And those are basically indestructible, so you don't have to keep buying, plastic sponges to clean things.
Nice.
So those are some of the disposable, or kind of the replacement for disposables that I carry. I also carry a lot of paper goods, stationery, washi tape, and for me, this is like kind of an extension of a really important tradition that we, as a society, have really moved away from, which is letter writing. Yeah. And I love writing letters. I love sending them out into the world. I know that it feels really good to get, especially these days, to get a handwritten letter in the mail. And I find that, there's this quote that I like, and I've had around for a while. It's by Janet Malcolm, who I honestly have no idea who this person is, but she said this really wise thing. Correspondence is a kind of love affair. It is with our own epistolary persona that we fall in love rather than with that of our pen pal. Nice. And, I find that to be so true, because I find that writing letters is almost in a way like a journal entry. And, it's a moment where you can share some of your thoughts with someone that's important to you, and you learn a little bit about yourself. And so I really like to promote the idea of people writing letters and sending letters to one another. So I have a lot of paper goods in my store as well. And then there's so many things, but the one thing that again was like one of the first things that I was like, I'm definitely selling this is kitchen linens, so cloth napkins and kitchen towels, which have just forever been one of my favorite things to have, not only just to have a reusable item in the home, but it's another thing of beauty. I have a lot of the kitchen towels and the cloth napkins, they're made by small makers or artisans. And so they're a great way to kind of add some artwork into your home, but also have it be something that serves a practical purpose. So anything that can be beautiful and like serve a practical purpose at the same time is definitely something that I want to have in my store.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's really cool. I like what you said about the letters too, because I tried to do a little bit of, pen paling, I guess, during the pandemic, and it's dropped off. So it'd be good to start that back up again. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you're not the first person that I've heard say that either. So
Yeah.
I think that, there was something that was, really hitting all of us of wanting to connect in different ways with people. So
Yeah.
I am so here for that.
Well, and it seems like you carry stuff from a lot of, cool other cool businesses as well. So I'm curious, are there any, partners that you work with?
Yeah. So when I first started, I really, I had been thinking about this idea of my business for at least over a year. So I had already, made some connections. So one of my first businesses I connected with was a brand called June and December. It's a husband and wife team that own this business. They're based out of Michigan, and the wife is an artist, and their products are, they say that they're storied items for home. And they kind of promote this idea that like all of the products that we have around us in our home every day sort of invoke a feeling of nostalgia, and they connect us to memories and moments of our life that were special. And so they spend a lot of time in nature. And so all of the imagery on there, they sell like cloth napkins, tea towels, paper goods, flower presses, little specimen collecting kits, things like that. They kind of promote a sense of adventure, and they remind us of the natural world. So all the prints on the tea towels and the cards are all the plants, basically plant matter from the natural world, or, graphics that invoke the imagery of plants. And, I had actually encountered them at a market that I went to probably 6 years ago, and I bought a tea towel from them, and I still have it, and it still works great. So,
Nice.
Yeah. So that, they were sort of one of the first people. And then, let's see, I have been really excited to work with some local artisans as well. And one of the things that's been really great about that is that I have a lot of ideas, and I am, pretty crafty. Like I sew and I garden, I can make a lot of things, but I also have always had a list that's my, I don't do that because other people do it list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized basically that I can't do everything that I want to do. And so I have had to, over the years, and especially now with my business, figure out ways to connect with people and find, oh, this is your strength. Let's work together on this idea. So locally, it's been really great because I've encountered people that make things that I really want to sell in my shop, and I can't make them. So I need to find someone else to do that. So I'll tell you two of my most recent collaborations that I'm excited about. One is a soap dish. It's made out of concrete, and it's made by Sam Hughes, who runs a business called Riley Street Market. She does a lot of photography and bakes a lot of desserts that she takes pictures of. But she also makes concrete like planters and candle holders or candles. And so when I saw her post something once, I already had this idea for the soap dish that I wanted. And I saw her post something out of concrete. And so I instantly got in touch with her and was like, hey, can you make this thing for me? And so she was all, definitely on board. And I've, it's been a big hit in my store. It's a rectangular soap dish, but it has a drain on it, like a little spout where the water drains out. So my soap bar stays like completely dry, which is really nice. One of the other things that I've been trying to develop is a fermentation crock made out of clay or like a ceramic or pottery fermentation crock. And I've worked with Dalt Pottery and Gem City Ceramics to develop two like really different looking fermentation crocks. And they're not in my shop yet, but they're getting very close. A lot of these collaborations do kind of take some time to develop, and everybody's busy and has stuff going on. So I'm really excited for those to kind of come full circle and like show up in my store at some point.
Yeah. Did you say just real quick, the fermentation, what was it?
So it's a fermentation crock, and it's to basically make fermented vegetables. So like sauerkraut, kimchi, you could ferment. I mean, just those two things alone have kind of endless amounts of different, you could put different ingredients, different flavorings and things like that. Sure. So I really like eating sauerkraut and kimchi and other fermented things. And I find that, one of the things that I want to promote is just reducing what we consume, in a sense of like, if you can, if you like to make things at home, if you like to cook, if you like to experiment with that type of stuff, why not make your own sauerkraut rather than buying it, because that's one less glass jar or plastic bag that you're consuming.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, like fermenting at home and, finding ways to just do things your own self without consuming it from, something that's already made, which is not for everybody, but for those that are, I think having a really lovely handmade fermentation crock is pretty cool, actually. So
yeah, for sure.
And then I would like to just point out that I do gather goods that are not made in the United States. And I like to talk about this because there's this very strong movement towards everything being local and supporting the local economy and, kind of focus on local. And, I sometimes have people come into my pop-up shop and ask me if everything is local. And my answer is, I wish, I truly do wish that everything that I wanted in my home, that all of us want in our home, could be produced locally. But the reality is it just can't. I mean, we have, so many of us drink coffee. We can get coffee roasted locally, but we can't get it grown locally. So, so what I try to do with my global stuff, like I said earlier, is I really try to find, where do the ethics of that product align with the ethics of my shop and with me personally. And so, one of my product lines I'm getting in this week that I'm really excited about comes from a brand called Hecho, and it's based out of Oaxaca, Mexico, and it's first of all, it's owned and operated by a woman. Mm-hmm. And so it's a woman-owned business. And then she works with about 70 different artisans in 8 different states within Mexico. Wow. And about 65% of the artisans are women. She visits all of the production sites to ensure that the women are being treated with respect and that they're being paid a fair wage for their labor.
Nice.
Most of the products involve, well, I think all of them actually involve materials that are grown in Mexico in the regions where the products are made. So there's no shipping of materials happening. And then they're all using these traditional methods of production that they have been using for centuries. And the owner of Hecho honors their rate. Like, she doesn't negotiate prices with them. She pays them what they want to be paid. And she works with them. Like, she has this, really great marketing where she does, she takes photographs of the people and videos of the people making. You really get to see the product in the process of how it happens, like watching the agave plant go from like a green plant to like a dried fiber matter. So it's just really fascinating. And really, ultimately, the goal of her business is to promote the work of these artisans. And so it's just a perfect fit for my shop. And then most of the stuff, it's like, reusable scrubbies made out of agave. So it fits into the sustainability mission. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And, one thing I was interested in, I was on your website, before the interview, and I was looking at some of the things that you had to offer. And one thing I love to do is make cocktails. And I noticed that you have some flavored simple syrups that I think I might need to order. So can you tell me a little bit about those? And are there any kinds of drinks that you like to make with them?
Yeah, I love those. So those are another thing that I got really early on. And they're one of the things that it's like, okay, well, it's not really sustainable, but it is in a sense that there's no plastic in the packaging, so, and you can reuse the bottle. But here's the thing, it helps. First of all, you can just make a homemade soda with it, right? So you don't buy a can of soda. If you even have like one of those soda makers, you can, make your own soda without even buying a bottle of soda water. But also they come in these really beautiful bottles. And so, even I have friends who will buy, the simple syrups and then they'll use the bottle for something else when they're done with it, because it's just so beautiful to have around. And so, again, it's another thing that it sort of brings some artwork into your home. And the flavors are really great. These women have been making these sodas for years. The customers recognize the brand name. And so it's like kind of something that you do that's a treat for yourself, which I think is just a really important thing for us to do at home, is to like treat ourselves, and take care of ourselves and eat yummy things that feel good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so what I usually do with it is I do make some handmade sodas sometimes, and I might add like a little bit of bitters into those. I really use them mostly for cocktails. And so I'll add usually for my preference, gin or bourbon and a little sparkling water and maybe like some citrus juice, and then the simple syrups. And they're pretty perfect, actually. So
nice. I'm going to have to get one of those, I think.
I highly recommend them.
Well, one thing I like about your store a lot too that's really cool is that you contribute to local organizations that are working to end domestic violence and provide resources for domestic violence victims. So I wondered if you could talk about, how you do that a bit and why that's important to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking about that, because I knew when I started my business that even though, the kind of the product line has, promotes a sort of like, like a, what do I want to say here? Like again, just, promotes kind of ethical living. But I really knew that I wanted to find a way to give back to the community. I am personally a victim of sexual abuse. And so I think that's why I am drawn to, just as a social issue, it's close to home. So it's really important to me to make sure that these resources or these organizations in our community that are trying to address issues of sexual assault and domestic violence are provided with the resources that they need. So that's probably why. And it's for years, it's been that way. As a theater artist, I was very blessed to work on some productions that addressed sexual assault and worked closely with the YWCA and other organizations to promote awareness and education about sexual assault and domestic violence. And so I kind of already had that connection there with our local YWCA. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing for me, and mostly what my charitable contributions are, they are about, providing, even if it's a fleeting moment, something to someone who's living in a shelter because they have no home that is safe, or someone who has experienced sexual assault. They need love and support, and they need to feel good, and they need to find something in their day to feel, okay about, and to feel like things are going to be okay. And this is just so challenging to really feel when you're in the middle of these experiences that these, people, mostly women, experience. And so, one of the sort of like give back promotions that I do, that I've done 2 years now, is I call it the Galentine's Day Chocolate Pay It Forward. Mm-hmm. And I ask my customers to just go on my website and buy a chocolate bar, and to donate to the YWCA for Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day, it's one of those Hallmark holidays that you just cannot escape. It's everywhere around us. And it's fine if you're in love and you're happy. Mm-hmm. But if you're not, it's really horrible and it makes you feel bad. Like, even if your life is really good, but you're still single, it can feel bad. But imagine if you're living in a shelter because you can't go home to a safe home, or you've experienced sexual assault or, sexual violence in your home. Being inundated with imagery of love and happy couples is just really, really isolating. Mm-hmm. And so, I just thought, this is like a nice thing that I can do. And so I wrap, my customers are so generous, and both times I've had a huge pile of chocolate bars. I wrap them all really, beautifully in tissue paper and washi tape, and I write beautiful messages on them. And, I just want to send something to the shelter that, makes these women feel loved, basically, like someone's out there thinking about you. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And obviously so sorry that happened to you, but I'm also, grateful that you're doing that, all that stuff, for people in the area. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, like you said, you don't have a physical store location, but you do sometimes, do pop-ups. And I'm wondering, are you going to be anywhere in person in the near future? And how else can people check out your products?
Yeah. So yes, I do not have a physical location, but I am looking for one. So if anybody listening to this knows of a perfect, lovely place that I can be, please feel free to contact me. I really want to be downtown, and I'm just keeping my eye out for the perfect place. I do a lot of pop-ups all over town, and I'm always looking for new places to do pop-ups as well. I'm really excited about this weekend. I'm going down south of town for the first time. I'm going to be in Centerville at Stubbs Park. there is a huge market happening there. It's called Centerville Merchant Market. It's being put on by the Heart of Centerville, and it's at Stubbs Park. I think I said that. It's from 11 to 6. And there's going to be a ton of food, a ton of vendors. I believe there's some form of entertainment. And this will probably be the biggest event. Well, maybe next to the arcade events, because those are pretty huge. But there is going to be 100 vendors at this event. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And my husband is setting up for his record store, and we're going to be neighbors. So I'm kind of excited about being at a market with him.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And then let's see. So I have a website. My website is open 24 hours. I offer free local delivery or pickup. The pickup site is usually my home in Belmont or my husband's business downtown. And I ship worldwide. So people can always, find me there. It's just www.pinkmoongoods.com. So it's easy to find. And pretty much all my products are on there. But of course, if anybody ever sees anything like on Instagram, they can always contact me directly.
Nice. Yeah. And I should feel free. I can edit this out so you don't have to answer. But what is your husband's record store? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. I was going to tell you about it. It's Skeleton Dust Records.
Oh, that's your husband's store. Okay. I love that store. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been there 4.5 years now. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. I've gotten some Guided by Voices vinyls from him. So.
Oh, great. Okay. Perfect.
Well, something else that I love about your business is that you're committed to social justice, which is something a lot of businesses I think are afraid to do sometimes. But I'm wondering if you could talk maybe about some of the issues that are important to you and why it was important to you to kind of make that an explicit value of your store.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is it is a kind of a tricky thing for a business owner. And I think that for one thing, I've watched other businesses, my husband's included, recognize that, politics and personal / business are not separate. There's just, and it's something I believe, like the personal is political and vice versa. It's hard for me to disconnect the two. And so, especially in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, I really started seeing a lot of businesses like step up and speak out about the fact that Black Lives Matter and that we need to start, especially as white people, doing something about this issue of the ways in which Black and brown people are treated in our country. And so it was very inspirational to me to see that people that own businesses could actually do that. And that, yes, you may lose a few people here and there, but I sleep better at night knowing, and I can hold my head up high knowing that as a business owner, I'm standing up for things that I believe in. And it's one reason that it has kind of become important to me, especially very recently, just really in the last couple of weeks, when the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision leak happened, although I was expecting it on a certain level, it was pretty shocking. And I started to feel, with this fight for reproductive rights, that it is just like so many other issues, really divisive. And it feels a little bit like, when you're upset about these things, you're screaming into the echo chamber.
Sure.
And so one thing I realized as a business owner, if I'm going to put this out there, like I support reproductive rights, that I wanted to also use that platform to extend an invite to people that believe differently than I do to have a conversation about it, because I just feel like we have to start doing this. We can't just keep preaching to the choir. We have to find ways to reach out and say, hey, I see that you're pro-life. Like, let's talk and let's have a conversation about this. And so on my stories, when I post things, I say, like, please, if you're going to unfollow me, please just DM me first and let's talk about this, or you can even unfollow me and then still just DM me. I don't care. I want to talk to people. I want to, and I'm not even sure I know exactly how to do that yet, but I feel at a point where I have no other choice but to do this, because I believe very strongly about racial justice, reproductive rights, and and as I stated earlier, just the issues of sexual violence and domestic violence in the world. And I just think these are things that, I want to be a voice for change, and I want my business to be that as well. And so I just, I can't help myself is really the simple answer.
I think it's great. And well, in addition to your website, people can, like, as you mentioned, find you on Instagram. So what's your handle there? And then are you anywhere else, on social media, or, ways that people can stay in touch with you?
Yeah. So Instagram, I'm just Pink Moon Goods. And I don't have a Facebook yet, but I've been told several times that I need to. And there's some like Instagram things that don't always work great because I'm not on Facebook. I've just personally never been on there. So yeah, I probably will be on there soon. And then I as I said, I have my website, so that has like my mission and my kind of ethics of my store on it, if anybody wants to read more about that. And I'm really trying to be more proactive too about adding my events to things like the Most Metro and the Downtown Dayton calendar, and places like that. So hopefully I'll start doing that more, and then people can find information there about my pop-ups.
Perfect. I was just thinking, now that you mentioned that, the thing you mentioned this weekend, but this will be airing after that, so I didn't know if you had anything else that was going to be happening after the 6th.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, actually. And it's good. I'm glad you said that, because I just thought about another thing that I really want to promote. So yes, for upcoming events, one event I'm very excited about is a market that I am actually hosting at the Saturday studio that's downtown on Jefferson Street. It's in the old DVAC building. And it's a lovely studio that's run by this couple. They rent it out for events, and they rent it out to photographers as well. And I'm going to be, as I said, I'm organizing and hosting the event. So I will be selling stuff as well, but I will have some other vendors there. Sam Hughes with Riley Street Market, she'll be there with some of her concrete goods. Charlie from Tadmore Greens is going to be selling native plants.
Oh, we just had an episode with him. That's awesome.
Oh, good. Yeah. Liz from Ivy is going to be doing a make your own bouquet with all local grown flowers that she sources from local farmers. And the YWCA is going to be there, and they are going to promote their programming, but also promote a really great program they started called Letters to Survivors. And it's where they created these rape crisis kits. So when they get called to meet a victim at, the hospital or wherever they meet them to conduct their they usually have to get an exam after the assault. So a representative from YWCA will meet them with these little kits that have like a change of clothing and like a little stuffed animal and a stress ball and just some comfort items. They also include these letters that are written by community members. And I've done this a couple of times where at a pop-up, I've had people come and write letters. And so I'm really excited to do this event, with YWCA there to promote their programming and to promote this letter writing program that they have that I think is just a really beautiful gift that we can give to victims. And there will probably be some other people there. I haven't fully, compiled all of the folks that I'm going to have there. My husband's going to DJ, and I have a female friend of mine that's going to DJ as well. And so it should be just a really fun, festive market day at Saturday Studio.
That's really cool. And what date did you say again?
That is on July 3rd. Okay. And it'll probably be in the 12 to 4-ish time frame. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk with me. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward. I think I'll go order some of that simple syrup as soon as we're done here. So thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That was my interview with Kathleen Hotmer, who runs the local business Pink Moon Goods. I learned quite a bit from this episode, and I hope you did too. And I'm really looking forward to getting some of those cocktails as I am ordering some of that sugar plum simple syrup. But if you enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for listening, and stay funky, Dayton.